I'm using a throwaway account because my brother lives on this site, and honestly, I don't want this linked to my main where I discuss my actual job. I'm currently sitting in a Motel 6 about 20 minutes from my parents' house because I don't feel safe going home, and my phone has been blowing up non-stop for the last 6 hours. I need to get this all down just to stop my hands from shaking. To understand the absolute insanity of today, you need the backstory on my family dynamic. It's your classic textbook narcissist, golden child, scapegoat triad. My older brother, Brad, 32 male, has always been the center of my parents' universe. Brad was the star athlete until he tore his ACL in high school. Brad was the one with so much potential. Brad was the one who needed extra help because he was sensitive. In reality, Brad is a chaotic man-child who has never faced a consequence in his life. He flunked out of college twice. Both times my parents paid off his apartment leases and car notes. He's had 3 DUIs, all swept under the rug thanks to my dad's connections in our small town. He's currently unemployed, living in my parents' basement, and his on-again, off-again girlfriend, Kayla, is 6 months pregnant with twins. Then there's me, 29 male. I was the quiet one. I kept my head down, got good grades, got a full-ride scholarship so my parents wouldn't have to pay for my school. They claimed they couldn't afford it after Brad's second rehab stint anyway, and moved 3 hours away to the city for a job in finance. I've been independent since I was 18. I pay my own bills, I visit on holidays, I play the role of the good son who causes no trouble. The only person who actually saw me was my grandfather, Mom's dad. Let's call him Pops. Pops was a hard man, a Vietnam vet, and he didn't suffer fools. He hated how my mother coddled Brad. He used to take me fishing at his cabin up at the lake, a modest 2-bedroom place on about 5 acres of land. It wasn't a mansion, but it was paradise to me. It was the only place I didn't feel like a second-class citizen. We spent summers fixing the dock, re-shingling the roof, and just talking. I loved that old man more than anyone. Pops passed away 3 weeks ago from a sudden stroke. I was devastated. I handled the funeral arrangements because Mom was too distraught. Read, she liked the attention of being the grieving daughter but didn't want to do the work. Brad showed up to the funeral 20 minutes late wearing a wrinkled polo and spent the reception eating all the shrimp and asking relatives for investment money for his latest pyramid scheme. Today was the reading of the will. I drove down this morning. The atmosphere in the lawyer's office was suffocating. My mother was clutching a handkerchief, dabbing dry eyes. My dad was staring at the floor, looking spineless as always. Brad was actually bouncing his leg, looking excited. I know for a fact they assumed Pops would leave everything to Mom, and then Mom would filter it down to Brad to set him up for the twins. Mr. Henderson, Pop's lawyer for 40 years, sat us down. He skipped the pleasantries. "To my daughter, Linda," Henderson read, peering over his spectacles, "I leave my savings account totaling $50,000 and the contents of my primary residence." Mom nodded, sniffing. "It's not about the money," she whispered loud enough for everyone to hear. "To my grandson, Brad," Henderson continued. Brad sat up straighter. "I leave my 1998 Ford F-150 and my collection of power tools. It is my hope that you finally learn the value of an honest day's work." The silence in the room was deafening. Brad's face turned bright red. "A truck? A 20-year-old truck?" he muttered. "And finally," Henderson looked directly at me with a soft smile, "to my grandson, my name, who was the only one to ever pick up a hammer to help me without asking for a dime, I leave the lake property, including the land, the cabin, and the boat, along with the remainder of my investment portfolio to cover the property taxes and maintenance for the next 20 years. You could hear a pin drop. Then the explosion happened. "What?" Mom shrieked. It wasn't a cry of grief, it was a banshee scream of entitlement. "That property is worth $500,000. He can't leave it to him."
"The will is ironclad, Linda," Mr. Henderson said calmly. "He updated it 6 months ago. He was of sound mind." Brad stood up, knocking his chair over. "This is bullshit. I have twins coming. I need a house. My name already has a condo in the city. He doesn't need it." Dad finally spoke up, looking at me with those pleading, cow-like eyes. "My name, son, obviously this is a mistake. Your grandfather was confused at the end. He wouldn't leave your brother out in the cold." "He wasn't confused," I said, my voice surprisingly steady, though my heart was hammering against my ribs. "He knew exactly what he was doing." Mr. Henderson handed me a thick envelope. "He left a letter for you, son." I took it. My mother literally lunged across the mahogany desk to try and grab it, but I pulled back. "We are leaving," Mom hissed, her face contorted in a mask of ugly rage I hadn't seen since I was 10. "We are going back to the house to discuss this as a family." I should have just driven back to the city right then, but I didn't. I fell into the old trap. I wanted them to explain why they thought I deserved nothing. So I followed them to their house. The second we walked through the door, the ambush began. Mom sat me down at the kitchen table. She switched tactics instantly, from rage to martyrdom. She started crying, real tears this time, but they were tears of manipulation. "Look at your brother," she sobbed, gesturing to Brad, who was raiding a fridge for a beer. "He is about to be a father. He has no home. He has no job. Pops's cabin is big enough for Kayla and the babies. It has land for them to play on. You're a single man. You work all the time. You'll never use it. It's selfish for you to keep it." "It's not just a house, Mom," I said, gripping the edge of the table. "It's where Pops and I bonded. He left it to me because he knew I'd take care of it." "I'll take care of it," Brad shouted, spraying crumbs. "I'll live there. That's taking care of it." "You'd sell it within a year to pay off gambling debts or buy a new truck," I snapped. Brad charged at me. My dad had to physically step in between us, holding Brad back. "Enough!" Dad yelled, then turned to me. "Son, be reasonable. We can't afford to buy Brad a house. If you keep this cabin, you are actively choosing to make your brother and his children homeless. Is that who you are? Are you that cruel?" The gaslighting was intense. I felt that familiar knot in my stomach, the guilt they've programmed me into since I was born. Maybe I was being selfish. I have a good job. I don't need the house to survive. But then I opened the envelope Mr. Henderson gave me. Inside was a handwritten letter from Pops. I read the first few lines silently. "Kid, if you're reading this, the sharks are circling. Do not give them the damn cabin. They will bleed you dry. Brad has had every chance in the world and squandered them. You earned this. This is your sanctuary. Keep it safe. Don't let them bully you. Love, Pops." I looked up at them, my mother, eyes red and puffy, waiting for me to fold. My dad looking disappointed in advance. Brad looking entitled and smug, like he knew I'd cave because I always cave. "No," I said. "Excuse me?" Mom whispered. "No, I'm not signing it over. I'm not selling it to give him the money. Pops left it to me. It's mine." The chaos that ensued is why I'm at this motel. Mom started screaming that I was no longer her son. Brad threw a coffee mug at my head. It missed by an inch and shattered against the wall behind me. He screamed that he was going to burn the place to the ground before he let me have it. Dad told me I was tearing the family apart over material possessions and that I should be ashamed of myself. I grabbed my keys and ran out the door, while Brad was trying to find something else to throw. As I backed out of the driveway, Mom stood on the porch screaming, "Don't you dare come back until you fix this! You are killing this family!" I've been at this Motel 6 for 2 hours. I've received 47 text messages and 12 missed calls. Examples of the texts: "Mom, I can't believe I raised such a greedy monster." "Dad, please just come back and sign the deed transfer. We can work out a payment plan where Brad pays you rent eventually." "Yeah, right." "Brad, watch your back." "Kayla, Brad's girlfriend. I hope you're happy making my baby sleep on the street. Karma is real. I'm exhausted. I'm heartbroken about Pops, and I'm terrified because Brad is unstable and knows where I live in the city. I'm meeting with Mr. Henderson again tomorrow morning to ensure the deed is locked down. But I don't know what to do about my family. Do I just cut them off? Am I actually the asshole for keeping a house I technically don't need when my brother has kids on the way? I feel like I'm going crazy.
Time passed since last post, 5 days. I want to start by thanking everyone who commented on the original post. Reading your replies in that dingy motel room was the only thing that kept me from driving back to my parents' house and signing the deed just to make the screaming stop. You guys made me realize that this isn't about the house, it's about control. And you were right, Pops knew exactly what was coming. It has been a hellish 5 days. The extinction burst, a term I learned from you guys, thank you, has begun, and it is ugly. The morning after my post, I met Mr. Henderson at his office at 8 a.m. sharp. I looked like a wreck, same clothes as the day before, red eyes, unshaven. Henderson, bless his heart, had fresh coffee and a bagel waiting for me. "I assume the family meeting didn't go well?" he asked dryly. I played him the voicemail Brad left me at 3 a.m. that morning. I want to transcribe it here so you understand what I'm dealing with. Brad's voicemail. "You think you're so smart, you little corporate prick? Pops was senile. He didn't know what he was signing. You manipulated him. You stole my house. If you don't sign those papers by Friday, I swear to God, my name, I will make sure you don't have a job to go back to. I'll ruin you. And don't think that cabin is going to stay standing if I can't have it." Mr. Henderson's face went stone cold. He threatened arson and professional defamation on a recorded line. Good, we can use this. He advised me to lock down my credit immediately. Mom has my SSN, obviously, and to install high-end security at the cabin yesterday. He also informed me that Pops had set up a specific anti-contest clause in the will. If anyone challenges the will and loses, they forfeit even the small bequests they were given. He sent a certified letter to my parents reminding them of this and formally notifying them that I am the sole owner of the property and any attempt to enter would be considered trespassing. I left his office feeling slightly more empowered, but then the flying monkeys arrived. My phone started buzzing with numbers I hadn't seen in years. Aunts, uncles, cousins I haven't spoken to since Christmas of 18. Aunt Deborah, Mom's sister. "I just got off the phone with your mother. She is hyperventilating on the floor, my name. How could you? Kayla is carrying twins, babies, innocent lives. Are you really gonna hoard a house just to spite your brother? This isn't how we raised you. Call your mother and fix this." Cousin Mike. "Yo man, heard you snake moved Brad out of the lake house. Not cool. He's family. You got money. Why you being a greedy pig?" I didn't respond. I blocked them one by one, but the silence from my parents was more terrifying than the noise from the relatives. I drove up to the lake house, about 45 minutes from my parents' town, to meet Mr. Henderson, recommended security contractor. I was terrified Brad was already there. He wasn't, but he had been there. When I pulled up the long gravel driveway, my heart dropped. The private property sign Pops had hand-painted years ago was ripped off the post and snapped in half, thrown in the ditch. I parked and walked to the porch. The front door had muddy boot prints near the handle, like someone had tried to kick it in but failed. Solid oak, thanks, Pops. But around the back, a window was smashed. I called the police immediately. While waiting for the sheriff, I climbed through the window, careful not to touch the glass, to assess the damage. They hadn't stolen anything valuable. The vintage fishing rods were still there, the TV was there. This wasn't a robbery, this was a tantrum. A gallon of milk had been taken from the fridge and poured all over the living room rug. Family photos on the mantel, pictures of me and Pops, were face down or swept onto the floor, glass shattered.
On the kitchen table, someone had carved "thief" into the wood with a pocket knife. I stood there, staring at the table where Pops and I used to eat caught trout and play gin rummy, and I felt a rage I didn't know I possessed. I wasn't sad anymore. I was done. The sheriff arrived, a guy named Officer Miller. He took a report. I showed him the "burn it down" text and the damage. "It's a civil matter mostly, son, regarding the will, but the B&E and vandalism are criminal. Do you have proof it was your brother?" I said. "I texted him he would do it." "That's intent, not proof he was the one who swung the hammer," Miller sighed. "Look, I'll go talk to him. Giving him a scare might settle him down, but you need cameras today." I paid the security guy extra to stay until dark and install a full ring system, floodlights, and reinforced locks. I boarded up the window. Before I drove back to the city, 3 hours away, I decided to stop at a gas station near the highway. While I was pumping gas, my phone pinged. It was an email notification. My mother had found my work email. Subject: "You leave us no choice." My name: Dad and I have been discussing this. We are prepared to sue the estate for undue influence. We know you poisoned your grandfather's mind against Brad on those fishing trips. We have witnesses who will testify that Dad, Pops, was losing his memory. If you want to avoid a nasty court battle that will drain every penny Dad left you, you will sign over the deed. We will offer you $10,000 for your trouble. This is the last offer. Brad is a mess. He needs this. Why do you hate your brother?" She was bluffing. Henderson said the medical records were clear. But then came the kicker. I got back to my apartment in the city around 10 p.m. last night. I was exhausted. I walked into my lobby, and the night concierge, usually a chill guy, looked worried. "Mr. Last Name, there was a guy here looking for you earlier. Said he was your brother? He was agitated." My blood ran cold. "What did you tell him?" "We told him we don't give out resident info and asked him to leave. He loitered outside for about 20 minutes. I almost called the police, but he eventually got in a truck and left. A beat-up red Ford?" "Brad's truck. He drove 3 hours to my city. He knows where I live." I went upstairs and double-locked my door. I sat in the dark and finally logged into the family phone plan, which, stupidly, was still in my name because I put them on my corporate discount years ago. I know. I wanted to see who they were calling. I pulled the call logs for Brad's number. He wasn't just calling Mom and Kayla. He had made 4 calls to a number I didn't recognize in the last 48 hours. I Googled it. It's a bail bondsman. Then I checked the court records for the county my parents live in, public record. It turns out Brad isn't just unemployed. He has a pending court date next month for assault and battery stemming from a bar fight 2 months ago. The pieces clicked. He doesn't just need a house for the twins. He needs an asset. He needs money for a lawyer, or maybe he needs to show the court he has a stable residence to avoid jail time. Or maybe he already owes people money. I took screenshots of everything. The call logs, the bail bondsman number, the emails from Mom. I sent a mass email to Mom, Dad, and Brad about an hour ago. I am filing a restraining order against Brad tomorrow morning for the threats and the attempted break-in at my apartment. I have notified building security. I have installed cameras at the cabin. The offer is $0. If you contact me again, it goes through Mr. Henderson. If Brad steps foot on the property, he will be arrested. Also, Mom, I'm canceling the phone plan in 24 hours. Good luck. I'm sitting here now watching the live feed of the cabin on my iPad. It's pitch black out there, but about 10 minutes ago, the motion sensor at the end of the driveway triggered. A truck stopped at the gate. It sat there for 30 seconds, idling. Then it reversed and drove away. I don't think this is over. I think they're getting desperate.
Time passed since last update. 3 weeks. I'm writing this from the precinct waiting room, drinking the worst coffee I've ever tasted. But it tastes like victory. My hands are shaking again, but not from fear this time. It's pure adrenaline. The last 3 weeks were the eye of the storm. After I filed the temporary restraining order, TRO, against Brad and cut off the phone plan, the direct harassment stopped abruptly. The silence was honestly worse than the screaming. I was constantly looking over my shoulder. I installed a second deadbolt on my apartment door. I started parking my car 3 blocks away just in case. But while they were quiet with me, they were loud with everyone else. The smear campaign was in full swing on Facebook. I made the mistake of looking at my mother's public profile a week ago. There were long, rambling posts about ungrateful children and how sharp the serpent's tooth is. She posted photos of Brad and Kayla looking sad, captioning them, "So excited for my grandbabies, praying they have a roof over their heads since family turned their backs on them." Mr. Henderson, my lawyer/guardian angel, told me to ignore it. He successfully got the TRO served. Brad was legally barred from coming within 500 feet of me or the lake property. We had a court date set for the permanent order next month. I thought that piece of paper would stop them. I was naive. This morning, at 6:45 a.m. on a Saturday, my phone started vibrating on the nightstand. It wasn't a call, it was the Ring app. Motion detected, driveway gate. Motion detected, front porch. Motion detected, back deck. I opened the app, heart pounding, and the live feed loaded. It was a convoy. A 20-foot U-Haul truck was idling at the gate. Behind it was my dad's SUV and Brad's truck. I watched in horror as my father, the man who claimed he just wanted peace, got out of his SUV with a pair of heavy-duty bolt cutters. He walked up to the chain locking the gate, the one I had just installed, and snapped it like it was a twig. They drove through. I didn't call my parents. I didn't text Brad. I pressed the speed dial button for the county sheriff's dispatch I had saved after the last incident and got Officer Miller on the line. "Miller," I said, my voice surprisingly calm. "They're there, right now, breaking and entering, violation of a protective order." "I'm 10 minutes out," Miller said. "Do not engage. I repeat, do not engage." "I'm 3 hours away, Miller. Just get them." But I couldn't just sit there. I stayed on the app, recording everything. The audio from the cameras was crystal clear, and it broke my heart into a million pieces. I watched them pull up to the cabin. Brad jumped out of the U-Haul. He looked manic. I told you he wasn't here. Little coward is probably hiding in the city." Mom, stepping out of the SUV, holding a clipboard. "Okay, hurry up. Kayla, you stay in the car, honey. It's damp out here. Brad, get the boxes inside. Dad, you start taking down those horrible curtains." "Dad, Linda, are you sure about this? The lawyer said—" "Shut up, Dad. Possession is 9/10 of the law. Once I move my stuff in and get mail here, he has to evict me. It takes months. By then, the babies will be here, and no judge will throw us out." That was the plan. Squatters' rights. They were going to force a tenancy situation to bypass the will. I watched Brad kick the front door. The reinforced deadbolt held. He kicked it again. Nothing. "Son of a... Give me the crowbar." My father handed him the crowbar. My father. I watched on the tiny screen as my brother jammed the crowbar into the doorframe of the house Pops built with his own hands. Wood splintered. He heaved, veins popping in his neck. Crack! The door swung open. "Okay, go. Living room first. Make it look lived in." They swarmed inside. I switched to the interior camera in the living room. They didn't just move boxes in. They started destroying my traces. Mom walked over to the mantel, picked up the urn, a small wooden box containing a portion of Pop's ashes that I had asked to keep there, and shoved it into a cardboard box labeled trash or storage. "Depressing old crap," she muttered. That broke me. I threw on my shoes, grabbed my keys, and ran to my car. I knew the cops would be there before me, but I had to go. I had to see this end. I drove 95 miles an hour almost the entire way. When I turned onto the gravel road leading to the property, the scene was chaos. Blue and red lights were flashing everywhere. There were 3 squad cars. I pulled up behind the U-Haul, blocking it in. The silence of the woods was replaced by screaming. Brad was already in cuffs, pressed against the hood of Officer Miller's cruiser. He was thrashing, screaming obscenities. "This is my house! My grandfather gave it to me! He stole it!"
Mom was physically clinging to another officer's arm, a female deputy who looked about 2 seconds away from tasing her. "He has rights! He has tenants' rights! We have a lease!" Mom was shrieking, waving a piece of paper. They had forged a fake lease. Then they saw me. Brad's eyes went wide, filled with pure, unadulterated hatred. "You!" he screamed. He lunged off the hood of the car, actually managing to knock Officer Miller off balance for a second before the other deputies swarmed him. They slammed him onto the gravel face first. "Stop resisting!" Officer Miller yelled. "I'll kill you!" Brad screamed into the dirt. "You think you're better than me? I'll burn it down with you inside." "That's a threat on a police officer's body cam," Miller said loudly. I walked up to the edge of the police tape. My dad was sitting on the tailgate of the U-Haul, head in his hands. He looked up at me. He looked old. "Son, Brad needed an address for the bail bond. If he didn't have a permanent address, they were going to revoke his bond for the assault charge. He was going to jail." "He's going to jail anyway, Dad," I said, pointing at Brad being shoved into the back of the cruiser. "And now he's got felony burglary, breaking and entering, violation of a restraining order, and resisting arrest to add to his tab." "You could drop the charges," Mom yelled from where the deputy was holding her. "Tell them it was a misunderstanding. My name, tell them right now. He's your brother." I looked at the house. The front door frame was destroyed. The screen was ripped. I looked at the U-Haul filled with cheap particle board furniture destined to replace Pop's oak antiques. I thought about the urn in the trash box. "Officer Miller?" I asked. Miller walked over, adjusting his belt. "Yeah? I want to press charges, every single one you can think of, against them all." Mom gasped. "Me? You can't press charges against your mother." "You were directing the burglary, Linda. That makes you an accomplice. And you," he pointed at Dad, "supplied the tools." The deputy cuffed my mother. The wailing that came out of her mouth was unearthly. It wasn't sadness. It was the sound of a woman who has never been told no, realizing she has lost all power. They didn't arrest Dad. Miller said it was a judgment call, and he wanted someone free to deal with the U-Haul and the pregnant girlfriend who had stayed in the car the whole time, crying. But Miller gave Dad a notice to appear for criminal trespassing and vandalism. I stood there for an hour, giving my statement. I showed them the video of the gate lock being cut and the urn being moved. As they drove Brad and Mom away, Brad was kicking the window of the cruiser. I walked into the house with Dad trailing behind me. He tried to speak, but I held up a hand. "Get your boxes out," I said. "You have 30 minutes before I have the U-Haul towed." "Where are we supposed to go?" Dad asked, his voice cracking. "We remortgaged the house to pay for Brad's lawyer last time. We don't have money for this bail." "Sell the truck," I referenced Pop's bequest to Brad. Dad flinched. "I'm currently at the station because I had to sign formal complaints. Mom is in a holding cell. Dad is trying to bail her out, but Brad is being held without bail because he violated the conditions of his previous release, the assault charge, and the active TRO. Henderson just called me. He's giddy. He says the anti-contest clause in the will is officially triggered because they tried to seize the property and claimed a fake lease to contest my ownership. Mom loses her $50,000 inheritance. It goes back into the estate, which means it goes to me. I don't even want the money. I just want them gone. I have to go back to the cabin tonight to board up the door until I can get a contractor out there. I'm going to be sleeping in a house with a broken door in the middle of the woods, but for the first time in my life, I'm not afraid of them. Brad is in a cage, Mom is in a cell, and I have the keys.
Time passed since last update, 18 months. I'm writing this from the dock. The sun is setting, painting the water that deep, bruised purple color Pop's always loved. There's a fresh coat of sealant on the wood beneath me, and the air smells like pine and charcoal. It's quiet. It has been a year and a half since the police convoy descended on this property, and while my life is finally peaceful, the road to get here was scorched earth. A lot of you have messaged me asking for the satisfying justice, and while I did get it, I want to be real with you. It didn't feel like a victory lap. It felt like watching a car crash in slow motion. Here is where everyone ended up. The legal fallout. The weeks following the U-Haul incident were a blur of depositions and court hearings.
Brad. My brother was facing a laundry list of charges: assault on an officer, resisting arrest, felony breaking and entering, vandalism, and violation of a restraining order. Because he was already out on bail for a previous assault, the judge was not amused. Brad's public defender tried to argue that it was a family dispute and that he had tenants' rights based on the fake lease Mom forged. Mr. Henderson, my lawyer, destroyed that defense in about 10 minutes. He presented the text messages, the time-stamped security footage of them breaking in, and the original will. Brad eventually took a plea deal to avoid a potential 10-year sentence. He pled guilty to felony B&E and the assault charge. He was sentenced to 4 years in state prison. He is currently serving his time at a medium security facility about 2 hours north of here. Mom. This was the one that actually hurt to watch. Mom was charged with criminal trespassing and aiding and abetting. Because she had no prior record, she avoided jail time. She got 3 years of probation and 500 hours of community service. However, the real punishment was the will. During a probate hearing regarding the inheritance, Mr. Henderson formally invoked the in terrorem, no contest clause. Since Mom had actively tried to subvert the will by claiming I coerced Pops and then attempting to seize the property by force, the judge ruled that she had forfeited her bequest. The $50,000 Pops left her, gone. The contents of Pop's primary residence, furniture, jewelry, etc., forfeited. When the gavel banged, Mom didn't scream. She just slumped over on the bench and looked at me with eyes so full of malice I felt it in my marrow. "I hope you rot in hell," she whispered as she walked past me. That was the last time I spoke to her. Dad. Dad was never charged. I declined to press charges against him specifically. He was just the driver, the enabler, the broken tool they used. But life charged him anyway. Without the $50,000 inheritance, and having spent their savings for Brad's first lawyer, and having remortgaged their own house to pay for Brad's debts, they went under. They lost their house. My childhood home was foreclosed on 6 months ago. Dad and Mom are currently living in a 2-bedroom apartment in the bad part of town. Dad works at a hardware store, ironically, to make ends meet. He looks 10 years older. The twins and Kayla. This is the part that actually matters. About 2 months after Brad went to prison, Kayla reached out to me. She was terrified. She was 8 months pregnant, broke, and realized that the golden child had left her with absolutely nothing but debt and a bad reputation. She wasn't a monster. She was just a girl who fell for a narcissist's love bombing. We met for coffee. She showed me the ultrasound. 2 boys. "I don't want anything from you," she said, crying. I don't want them to grow up like him." Remember that $50,000 Mom forfeited? By law, it reverted to the residual estate, which meant it came to me. I didn't keep it. I felt like that money was cursed. I set up an irrevocable trust for the twins. The money is locked down tight. It can only be used for their education or medical emergencies, and the trustee is a third-party firm, so neither Mom, Dad, or Brad can ever touch a cent of it. The boys were born last October. They're healthy. Kayla broke up with Brad, obviously, and moved back in with her parents, who are decent people. She brings the boys up to the lake once a month. I teach them to fish, even though they can barely hold the rods. They are my nephews. They are family, but their father is not. The aftermath and the cabin. I spent the last year renovating the cabin. I didn't tear it down. I restored it. I fixed the door frame Brad shattered. I replaced the rug Mom ruined with milk. I put the photos back on the mantle. But I also made it mine. I built a new deck. I turned the second bedroom, which was just storage, into a proper guest room for when friends visit. I am fully no contact NC with my parents and Brad. I did receive one letter from Brad from prison. It was 4 pages of scribbled ranting about how I stole his life and how when he gets out, he's coming for what's his. I handed it directly to the police, and it was added to his file. It will likely hurt his chances at parole. He just can't help himself. My mother tries to circumvent the block occasionally. She uses fake numbers to text me things like, "Your father is sick, have you no heart?" Or, "It's Christmas, surely you can forgive us." I don't reply. I learned the hard way that any response is fuel. Therapy helped me realize that I'm not mourning the loss of my parents, I'm mourning the parents I wished I had. The ones who exist are strangers who share my DNA. Conclusion. Yesterday, I was cleaning out the shed and found an old tackle box of Pop's. Inside, tucked under a spool of line, was a Polaroid of us from 20 years ago. We were standing on this very dock, holding up a bass. On the back, he had written, "Keep your line tight and your head straight." I think I finally have. The lake is calm, the deed is in my safe. The toxic waste has been cleared from my life. I'm going to stay out here and watch the stars come out. Thanks for listening, Reddit.